Hey everybody, welcome to Paul Mash TV, bringing you the very best indie country from all over the world. And now, ladies and gentlemen, he is Paul.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Paul Mash TV. I'm Paul Mash, your host of course, and we're glad that you could join us again for another interview. And the feedback just keeps coming, folks, and we appreciate that. And if you haven't had your chance yet and you'd love to contact us, go to Facebook at facebook.com/PaulMashTV and like the page and keep up with the updates there. And also you can email us at capital P lowercase mash TV, that's all one word, at gmail.com, and send us your email, what you think of the show, any fan mail, any suggestions for musicians you'd like to see on the show. If you know anybody, just give us their names and we'll contact them and see if we can get them on there for you. And also check out our website. It's paulmash1.wix.com/PaulMashTV, and we have almost every interview we've done up until now. So if you'd like to go to a flashback, you can do that. And tell us what you think about that. Right now, from Ormand Beach, Florida, we have Matthew Bonazzoli, another talented musician, and I think you're really going to like him. So without further ado, let's go right to the interview with Matthew Bonazzoli, right here on Paul Mash TV. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Paul Mash TV, the interview section. And from Ormand Beach, Florida, we have Matthew Bonazzoli. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
That is actually an excellent pronunciation.
Oh, okay. All right, good. Well, we want to thank you for joining us, Matthew. Usually the first question I like to ask people is, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you decided to become a musician? I mean, everybody has their own story, so let's hear your story on it.
That's a great question, and surprisingly, I've never really directly been asked that. I would say that I started writing poetry and writing short stories and things like that. And then I used to listen to a lot of music when I was much younger, but mostly, interestingly enough, I listened to like the Rat Pack and classical music and things like that. And then only later did I actually start getting into rock music, mostly in high school. And I hooked up with a couple of guys in high school and started working on my vocal technique. Of course, by then we were doing mostly hard rock, which is pretty common for high school in the 80s. And it just went from there, just kept going. It wasn't any deliberate, I'm going to be a musician and I'm going to do this. It just kind of started. It was a thing to do, and it was a creative outlet. And I can't draw, so I'm terrible at anything like art, painting, drawing, but I can write, and hopefully people think I can sing as well. And so between the two of those, I think I actually found a creative outlet. And I've taken that, now for 30 years, been performing and writing and recording music.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty good story, actually. And it's interesting that you mentioned the Rat Pack and all that. I about a year or so ago, I actually interviewed a guy that was a Frank Sinatra tribute artist, and
oh, interesting.
Yeah, he lived in Canada, but he was pretty good, and he had someone that he recommended that was a Dean Martin one, but I guess he turned it down. But that would have been interesting too,
Yeah, if people look me up on YouTube and things like that, they'll find some videos where I did tribute shows, and I usually did the Dean Martin songs. We had a guy that did the Sinatra, but I've always kind of been more of a Dean Martin fan than a Sinatra fan. And his voice and his stylings just seemed to fit my voice better.
Oh, okay. Well, what would you say? I mean, you probably already let me know that, but what would say your biggest influences? What would you say the Rat Pack are your biggest influences? Maybe there's more. Maybe you could talk about.
I would say Dean Martin's style definitely is an influence. Of course, he got his from, I believe, the Mills Brothers. And if you really listen to some of the Mills Brothers recordings, Dean Martin's style is absolutely right on, dead close to one of the Mills Brothers and how he would sing. But influences in my writing, I would say Pink Floyd, the Electric Light Orchestra, Anything from country artists, not really the what they call the modern country, which is kind of like, I don't know, it's tough to say. It's such a mashup of styles now. But yeah, I did a lot of. I was a big fan of Roy Orbison and Elvis Presley and all the Sun Records artists, and it just kind of developed into my style. But on the same front, I was also a fan of the Led Zeppelins, and even like the Ronnie James Dio when he was, you know, with Black Sabbath, and I was, you know, I was influenced by musicians across the board. Generally, though, I would pay attention to people who had excellent vocalists. If the vocalist was weak, I was like, you know.
Yeah, you do have a good point there. Why don't you tell us about some of the albums that you've had? I mean, I know you've had at least a couple. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it goes back. My first full-length album I released way back in 1993. And it was kind of a progressive rock. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. And every now and then I'll do a show and I will play one of the tracks from it, because it's not something I'm embarrassed about at all. It's not like it's some screamy death metal or something. And people that know my music now of late would be like, oh my God, what did he do? It wasn't like, it's not really like that, but it was just interesting. It was much edgier. We've softened a bit, I think, in the musical stylings. And I released the second in 1995 that was similar to the progressive hard rock. And then I took a few years off and came back in 1999 with a band called Gearhead. And with the Gearhead, I was asked by some people I had played with in bands previous to come back and front this band they wanted to put together. And as I recall, my statement went, okay, I will come back, but we are going to do original music that people will enjoy when they hear it live for the first time. And it sounds like, yeah, you're just going to go to some formula. And in some ways that's true. There is a lot of formulaic chord progressions in what we do because people's ears immediately pick up on certain cues. And Gearhead first started taking the stage in 1999. We released an album called Dynaflow, and it was very well received. In fact, very surprisingly, because we were kind of going to do a one and done. And when we performed out, so many people were into it, and we started winning awards. We won a Best of Boston award and several performer of the year and things like that. And it was kind of surprising. So the problem we had, though, was with Dynaflow. It was a very it had a 50s creepy cool vibe, because what we did was we combined 50s, 60s, and modern rock. And at the time, modern rock was like Gin Blossoms and Toad the Wet Sprocket and bands like that, not the grunge bands that were big in the 90s. And so for the second album, which won, you know, a slew of awards and got massive airplay, I decided to write a very upbeat, this is going to be the music we play live album. And that album was called Torqued. And it was when we were playing all over for Torqued that people first started pointing out that I sounded like a Roy Orbison, Elvis type of singer. And an interesting story I've told several times is we played a show, we opened for a band that was, I wish I could remember who they were, but they had actually been touring since the 1950s. And this was probably in the year 2000, possibly 2001. And we finished our set, and we were backstage, and this guy came up to me, the bass player from that band, and he played an upright bass. And he just came up and he was like, boy, where did you learn to sing like that? It's like, you sound like all those guys from the 50s, you know, the Johnny Cash, Roy Orbison, Elvis Presley. Nobody can sing like that anymore. You got to keep that going. And the funny thing was, until he said that, I had just never thought that I had a similar style. You know, I certainly liked those artists. It just never occurred to me. And that actually morphed into this kind of image that we had, that we were kind of that rockabilly-ish, even though we weren't playing rockabilly, we were playing a kind of modern rock, and we won several Best of awards. But people latched onto that vocal sound, and they'd say, "Oh, you're kind of like a pop band." It's like, well, certainly not like a modern pop band. Maybe if, you know, you would call Elvis or something pop in the 50s, yeah. And it was later I started doing some shows and people started saying that I kind of reminded them of Dean Martin. And I guess maybe from stage persona or something like that. And so I started thinking about adopting that style in, and the Gearhead sound was very much more rock based. And I ended up moving to Florida. Gearhead disbanded, and I decided to form a new band. And it happened because I happened to meet a piano player named Patrick Thompson, who's on all the Bonazzoli band albums. And he's a swing piano player. And I happened to meet him at a Chamber of Commerce networking event. And we were just talking music for some reason. We were sitting at a bar talking about that, and he mentioned it, and we shared this love of the swing music. He was more ragtime, 20s, 30s. I was more the Glenn Miller Orchestra and the Rat Pack. But it hit me that if I could take the Gearhead sound and add a level of swing and maybe a little bit more country twang, we would really have this mashup. And so we started to rehearse for the first Bonazzoli band album, which was called Quiet Little Towns. And from there, we've just kept going. We've released 3 Bonazzoli band albums since then. And some people would think that American Ghost Stories was technically the first Bonazzoli band album, but Quiet Little Towns, we did a release, but the studio that we recorded it with ruined it. And so I ended up re-recording the entire album 2 years ago and re-releasing Quiet Little Towns. But so we've now, as the Bonazzoli band, done 3 full-length albums. We're set to release a version of the Gearhead Torqued album with all new recordings of the songs, probably early next year. I mean, most of the recordings are finished. So we just keep going. We are much more of a recording outfit than we are a performance outfit. So that's a brief history of it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good story about your albums there, and I'm sure if anybody hasn't had would like to have an album, I'm sure there are ways to get it. Maybe you can let them know.
Sure. Our website is very, very simply bonazzoli.com, and if you search Bonazzoli on YouTube or Amazon or iTunes or anything like that, you will find us. We have been around for 20 years, and we've recorded a lot. We shot a lot of music videos. It's definitely all out there.
Okay. And speaking of videos, we're going to be playing one in just a moment of yours. Can you tell us a little bit about that song?
Sure. Yeah, this song is called Taking Chances. And the reason why I submitted this, even though the video is several years old, I'm really proud of the video. I love the way it looks. I love the storyline of it. It's because the album, American Ghost Stories, we kind of bring it out every Halloween because American Ghost Stories is a concept album. And the concept is it's kind of like a tribute to old-time radio shows of the 30s, 40s, 50s. And so it's got ghost stories on it, and it's got detective stories and romance stories. But the reason why I sent you Taking Chances really is because it's hit its 5-year anniversary. We released it mid-October of 2013. And it's really, I think it's the album that defined our sound. And it was really the album that kicked us off and has just been very, very successful. So not quite maybe as successful as Torqued, but Torqued has had, almost 20 years out there to sell. And American Ghost Stories only had 5, but certainly American Ghost Stories really defines our sound. And I think this Taking Chances video is definitely one of our best.
Okay. Well, again, we'll be watching that just shortly, but I just want to let you know I think we're about out of time. But I want to thank you again, Matthew, for stopping by. We'd love to have you back again sometime. If you ever have anything new to plug, we'd love to have you back. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and play that video now. Here's Taking Chances from Matthew Bonazzoli right here on Paul Mash TV. Don't go away.
change, but the risk is worth it all at the end of the day. You're taking chances on love, but who's taking chances on you? I can see it in your eyes, your hope is fading every day. But all I can say is just give it time. Don't let it slip, don't let it slip away. You're taking chances on love, who's taking chances on you? You're taking chances on love.